work is going to be there. You know, if you have the opportunity to take a few hours off or take a day off to be present for your child, it could change the world for your child. Showing up for those special events, going to their games, going to their award ceremonies, going to their choir, their guitar lessons, that can really do a lot for your child.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Love, Health, and Prosperity podcast, where we talk about lifestyle, we talk about mental health, and the importance of family cohesiveness. And today we have two more guests that are going to talk to us a little bit about the importance of making sure that you manage difficult situations. Now, this is one thing that I'd like to talk to a lot of people about. Sometimes I find myself having a hard time expressing my emotions and myself and being able to talk to the people that I love about problems that I have. That's why it's so important that you get yourself into a network where people make you comfortable and be able to let you talk about your problems and be able to find solutions. Well, not them solve your problems, but you find your own solutions to your problems. But the simple fact that you're letting them out, that's one of the most important things. And today I have two special guests. We have Helen and Candelaria, and we have Jazmine Samaniego that's going to talk to us a little bit about how to cope with stress and how to use coping techniques in your favor. So without further ado, thank you, ladies, for being with us on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Jazmine, do you know what to do with your hands right about now?
No.
I know it's kind of a crazy time for a lot of people, especially with everything that's going on a political level, on family, and all kinds of drama that's taking place. There's just so much complication in the world right now. So to me, it was important to have a segment that talked a little bit about, how to manage all this stuff, right?
Yes, definitely.
So I want you guys to, first off, start kind of talk about yourselves right now. Just introduce yourself very briefly.
I'll pass it on to you first, Jazmine.
Thanks. My name is Jazmine Samaniego, and I have not been a counselor for very long, but I have been in social services for about 15 years, all over the community, and now I am a mental health counselor at the moment, and I work with minors, children.
Okay. My name is Helen Candelaria, and I've had about 5 years counseling experience. This is a completely different degree for me and a completely different career. Before I was in education, and I had a different master's in education. So I worked a lot with adolescents, and currently I work with the migrant population, and also I've had about over 10 years with adolescent experience.
Cool. Well, look, how does a person get into this field? How do you find an interest in mental health?
Well, I think it really has to come, this is a giving type of a feel, it's very rewarding. So you have to be able to want to, listen to people, because that's the main thing, is you listen, and you have to be very empathetic. And I think that if you get into this field, it's for the right reasons, because you want to help people.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, for me, it was a little bit of always wanting to work with the community and be helping. And then a little bit of personal experience, too. I have some people in my family that have suffered through mental health issues. And so being in the field helped me understand them.
That's cool. Well, everybody has some sort of adversity that they have to work with. There's no such thing as not having problems in this world, right? But when it comes to managing your own issues sometimes, has it been difficult for you guys? I know you guys work with your certain clients at work, but having to go home, what's that like for you guys, and having to manage that stress?
Yes, well, I've had the pleasure to work with Miss Jazmine in this field, and we both have had a lot of, stressful situations. On top of it, you're hearing a lot of stressful stories from clients. So you have to learn how to de-stress from that, and you also have to learn how to go home and not bring that stress to your home life. So I think between all the therapists that work together, we do a very good job of relying on each other and de-stressing with each other and applying coping techniques that help us.
Yeah. In working with Helen, laughter, humor comes into play a lot. So
why is that so important, Jazmine?
Because it gets, we hear some very heavy stories, very difficult life stories and traumas that our clients deal with, and it's hard not to empathize with them. So having a lighthearted conversation with a colleague, laughing about whatever, that helps de-stress. And at the end of the day, you can go home feeling lighter. Not carrying all that burden from your clients.
Do you guys think sometimes people rely on you guys as therapists sometimes to be able to manage all the stress that comes with being in this profession?
Like in our personal lives?
In your personal lives.
All the time. Yeah. My kid's like, you're a therapist, you should know. And I tell them, I'm not your therapist. So,
same here.
How come people can't understand that concept, though? Why don't people understand the fact that there's boundaries right there? Can you guys explain that? Now that, this opportunity comes up and there's probably people that are looking at us and saying, well, yeah, they have it all together. They can manage it.
I think the main thing is that they hear the word therapist and they think, oh, well, they can solve my problem. But that's not what therapy is about. Therapy is about being able to help the client work through their own solutions and help them find their solutions. It's not about providing the solution for the client. So it's a lot of listening. It's a lot of like guiding them through what's best for them. And I feel like there's a misconception there that just because you're a therapist, you have the answers. And that's not true. You have your own answers within yourself.
And that's very true. And really all we do is help you find your own answers. That's it. We talk to you, which is a lot. Talking is very helpful, and people don't see the benefit in just talking. And so even just as simple as talking to somebody, that right away helps you get burden off your chest. And in my personal life, you just have to set boundaries with your family and friends and say, I can empathize and I can tell you maybe what's wrong, but I can't fix it for you.
Yeah.
It's unethical.
It's very unethical. But do you find it difficult sometimes? Because sometimes, you have the answers, right? Sometimes you can give somebody, well, not the answers, right?
Well, you want to, and you want to, be straight up and say, but you also don't want to cross that boundary, and you have to set those limits, and you're the professional, so you're responsible to provide that, ethical boundary.
I've literally sat there in conversations with like family or friends, and I'm like looking at them and I'm like, I know exactly what's going on, but I can't say it.
Okay. But that's hard though, isn't it, Jazmine?
It's very hard because you see your people suffering, or carrying something that they should be able to get rid of. But that's where we advocate and tell them therapy is nothing. There's nothing wrong with therapy. There's nothing wrong with going to talk to somebody about what's going on with you. When I first became a therapist, my family, I would tell them like, hey, you should go talk to somebody, and they'd be like, ay, pues es que no estoy loco. And I'd be like, it's not about being crazy. It's just about wanting to talk to somebody.
But I like that you say that though, because it's like, I've been trying to really explain this whole thing to a lot of people when I've had other therapists talk about this issue right here. What's happening in our community where people just have a hard time reaching out for therapy and help?
I think a lot of it is cultural, especially us working with the Latinos and Hispanic community. It's part of their culture where, they were raised, their parents telling them, no hables de los problemas, don't talk about your problems, keep it to yourself, or going to a therapist that's loco. That
no tenemos tiempo para estar tristes. Chale ganas. Yes.
So I think it comes from that. But I think that's why it's so important to educate people about the importance of, mental health and breaking the stigma. And for me, being an educator in the past, I think it's so important to, just educate people and tell them, you don't have to go to a therapist for something like really traumatic or, because you're crazy. You can just go to seek clarity. You can just go to the therapist to, find solutions to some of the problems that you have, or stress relief, or just simply talking about your problems. It helps to have a listening ear.
A listening ear that is unbiased, because
and unjudgmental,
right? Because if you talk to a friend, or you talk to, which is how it's helpful to talk to a friend.
Are people nowadays very judgmental?
Yes,
especially because of social media. So I feel people are more apt to not disclose, like when they're having issues, because they're going to feel judged. So that's not good. So that's why it's so important to have one person that's neutral, non-judgmental, non-biased, for you to be able to talk about your problems.
And then everybody wants to portray that everything is beautiful and wonderful on social media, and a lot of times it's not. It's not. So you really have to work towards wanting to seek out that help and admit sometimes maybe something is wrong. And that is I think a huge first step is just admitting that maybe you do need some help. And it's not like, again, it's not like, I'm so depressed, I need help. No, I just need to talk to somebody about it. It could be the tiniest issue, but.
And I feel this is also very prominent with men. Men are so guarded and not willing to disclose their emotions, especially in the Hispanic and Latino community. And I've had clients. I had one client in specific where he was like, well, I'm supposed to do this therapy session with you, but he was embarrassed to talk about his problems. And he said that, growing up, that he
was afraid to be vulnerable, you're saying?
Yes, and to just talk about his problems, because he was saying that in his family, men don't talk about their problems. They just hold it in, and deal with it. And so I made him feel comfortable. I educated him on the importance of, releasing those emotions, because if not, it could affect his physical health. And he was already pre-diabetic, and he had gone to the doctor, and he also had hypertension. So I was telling him holding those emotions in can cause, physical health issues. So after, educating him a little bit on the importance of talking about his problems, building that rapport, making him feel comfortable, man, he went off and just laid it all out. And then at the end of the session, he really thanked me, and he said that he felt so good, like just releasing all
because it's cathartic.
Yeah, releasing all that pent up like emotions he was having, and that he felt really good about it. And he was even telling me that he's willing to look for a therapist in his community so he can go, and talk to them like once a week, or however, whatever his needs are. But he was really surprised.
Well, you talked about underlying issues, right? Before that, like hypertension, diabetes, and all that stuff. That's something that is a great contributor to, to your emotions and how you feel and how you manage them, right? But also, Jazmine, how do you open somebody up to talk to you about these type of things? What are some of the techniques you use to have somebody open up to you?
I'm really laid back in my sessions. I don't start with like digging. I start with getting to know them, you know? Some people, most everybody likes to talk about themselves, so if you can grasp at a straw of what their interests are, they'll start with talking about their interests, and it might take 1 or 2 sessions to get them going, but you have to build that rapport, that trust with them. So get them talking about themselves so that they feel comfortable talking about themselves with you, and talk about their interests, talk about their music that they like, hobbies, their work, their family. A lot of people love talking about their family. They're very proud about their kids and things like that, or their parents. So that's how I started. Really laid back. I use a lot of humor too,
Humor is the best, would you say?
Yeah, because they come in thinking, like we said earlier, that I have my life together, and that I'm a professional, and that I'm here to do business or some clinical work. But really, if you let them know that you're down to earth, you're human, you're just there to listen, they'll break down their walls too. So I start with a lot of humor and getting them to talk about themselves and what they like. And then from there, as therapists, we're trained to catch little things, little comments that they say that are concerning to us, that are not concerning to them, and then I'll just grasp onto that and keep them going from there.
Wow. Do you notice any resistance when you catch those things?
Sometimes, because they don't realize that they said it, like it just slipped out, and they'll be like, well, why do you ask? And I'll be like, well, because I just...
Because I'm curious.
I caught it.
Yeah, and I agree with Jazmine. I think the most important is to really build that rapport with the client and make them feel safe and let them trust you that they can disclose all this important information to you, and they're pretty much disclosing their life to you, so you really have to make them feel safe and build that rapport. I also feel that not every therapist is right for you, so I think that's so important. I feel like if you do have an encounter with a therapist and you didn't feel it and it didn't go very well, you can go look for a different therapist.
You can shop around.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can shop around.
Keep going with that, please.
Because I had an encounter one time. I went to a therapist and it was so uncomfortable for me. And after experiencing that therapist, I didn't want to go to therapy anymore. Like, I kind of felt discouraged. But then I realized, that therapist didn't match me, so I went ahead and kept shopping around, and I found a therapist that I felt comfortable. And I mean, things completely changed. So it's very important that not just one therapist is a fit all for you.
Correct. Yeah. And there's different modalities as therapists that we use that we trust, and not all of those therapy systems work on everybody.
Yeah, well, you talk about modalities, Jazmine, Helen. I mean, those are all important too, but the first impressions are very, very important too.
Definitely.
Can you guys talk about first impressions real quick?
Sure. So, I mean, just like, when you meet somebody in the world, like, you get a first impression of them. So when you go to your first encounter with a therapist and you get that first impression that you're really not, what is it called? Like, aligning
You're
with
not
them or vibing with them. I mean, me and Jazmine vibe like that. So I can tell her everything. And she will
Sometimes
not judge.
too much.
Yeah, she won't judge. But yeah, you have to find that right therapist for you where you vibe, and first impressions tell you a lot. I mean, if you go with the therapist and they're very like rigid and stiff, and that's not how you are, then obviously you're going to continue shopping for somebody who's a little bit more laid back. Some people need that rigid type of therapist or a reality type of therapist to like kind of snap you and guide you to what you need. And then some people need a different type of a more laid back therapist. So it just depends what your needs are, and you have to know what your needs are, and you have to know to follow your gut and your instinct as well.
Yeah, and I think that we've all encountered in our field or our experience with clients, we've all encountered clients that we just don't mesh with, and so it's important to also, as a therapist, be like, what, I don't think that this can go the way you need it to go. So it's important to be able to say that as a therapist as well.
Egos aside.
Yeah, exactly. Because
how difficult is that to do? Have you guys ever had to do that before?
I've never had to do that, but I've seen it done by other therapists, and I think it's honorable, because it's about the client. It's not about us, it's not about us taking on a challenge, which a lot of clients are challenging, right? But if we're just not going to be able to help them, we're just not. And that's part of our ethical code is if their needs are not within our scope of practice, then we need to let them go.
Yeah.
And refer them, to somebody who would be able to help them.
I think that you guys are saying so many valuable things because when people don't practice those codes, those ethics, then that's when you have the stories of, I already went to a therapist and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
And they get so discouraged.
Yeah. And then they stop all of a sudden.
Exactly. Right? And I've been there because like I said, I had that very bad encounter with a therapist, and I did stop going. And then I realized, no, like I need to find a therapist that's right for me. And so I think also that's another good point is that you should always be learning and educating yourself, because things change throughout the years, and especially in the medical field. I mean, there's so many advances, on a daily basis, that you should always be learning and researching what new techniques are out there, what could help you. So I think that's another important thing, is continued, continuous learning and educating yourself. I think that's the best way you can help yourself.
And bouncing off each other as therapists too. I've learned a lot from Helen. I've learned a lot from other colleagues. And, I take a lot of what they say and what they do into the way I do things too. So I think, being in the community with other therapists helps out a lot too.
That's cool. So what's the importance can you guys talk a little bit about what eclectic means?
Yeah, sure. So eclectic is just...
Because I know you guys were talking about modalities right now. That's the reason why I kind of throw that out there.
So I think eclectic therapeutic practice is mainly just pulling out all the type of coping techniques from different therapeutic techniques to be able to help that client. So you're not just stuck with, person-centered, or you're just not stuck with reality therapy or CBT. You're using a little bit of everything to be able to help the person at that time with whatever their needs are. So I think that, a lot of the clinicians use that, because sometimes reality therapy is not helping one person, or CBT, or
but different aspects of different modalities can help. And I think that's what's good about therapy, is that it doesn't have to be like a linear thing. It can be just pulling from everywhere to help the client, and really the client says how their therapy goes. You know what I mean? Sometimes they move really quickly and they heal really quickly, and other times it just takes a little bit longer and a little bit more of a push, or allowing them to go through that specific thing a little bit longer than other things. So it's really up to the client, I think, and how their treatment goes.
And I think too, it's especially with adolescents, it takes them a little bit longer to bring down those walls and be able to actually be honest with themselves and with what they're going through and their emotions. But once they do open up, I mean, they're very resilient at a young age. So once they decide that they want to open up and that they want to help themselves, I mean, and
once you gain their trust, because I think adolescents are very, skeptical.
Talk to us a little bit about adolescents and providing therapy to somebody who is a teenager right now, guys. How difficult is that?
Well, I find it a little difficult because they're so hormonal sometimes. And so their attitude may change from one session to another. You just don't know what they're going through.
So on top of hormonal changes, they're very impulsive, because obviously the front of their brain isn't fully developed. So they're very impulsive. And then also, to top it off, I mean, they're adolescents, right?
Say no more, right?
So it's a little bit challenging, working with adolescents, and of course with the parents of the adolescents.
I find it very hard to work with adolescents that it's just them receiving therapy, because if it's not a family thing, you can talk to the adolescent all you want about doing things, in a healthier way. But if they go home to those unhealthy behaviors and influences, and what's the point? So I feel like with adolescents, it has to be like a whole family commitment. And I feel like sometimes that's tough on parents, because it's really tough as a parent to maybe hear that what you're doing at home is not good for your child.
Call it what it is. Call it what it is. I mean, think about it. I mean, you sit down with the child or with the teenager for 1 hour. You listen to what they have to say. You identify a few things that need some changes or improvements, for example, or encourage certain behaviors that are good. But then again, they have to go back to that environment.
Exactly. And a lot of the times the problem is the parents, I mean, I hate to say that, but it's true.
It's
true. A lot of times the parents are not providing enough,
encouragement,
support, encouragement, they're always at work. And so that's where the problems arise. And also on top of it too, like, leaving your teenager at home all the time with, access with social media. I mean, that's a big problem right there. We're seeing a lot of teenagers with the highest suicidal rates, highest depression rates, and that has a lot to do with social media and isolation. They're at home on the computer playing video games, or on social media being judged by other teenagers, by their peers, and so that really hits them in their self-esteem. They already have a low self-esteem as it is because they're adolescents,
right?
And so and then to pile isolation and
bullying has become so easy to do online.
Yeah.
So it's really and that is a great.
And so where do the parents come into play? Well, where are the parents? Why aren't they monitoring how long they're on social media?
Yeah.
You guys mentioned some really interesting things, like recently in the news, and I know it's probably one of the best practices to stay away from major news, right? Because sometimes that can trigger a lot of emotions. Most recently, we experienced somebody who was in the downtown area that was, he just wanted it ended at all, right? Or you had a recent a tragedy where because something happened, a child died, and things of that nature. You listen and you hear those type of things, and they affect you in some way, right?
They really do.
Yes.
I feel that they do.
Yes.
Yeah. If all you're consuming is bad, you're gonna feel bad.
And and especially that's bad for like the older generation and the geriatric generation and like your parents. I mean, they're so used to turning on the news at night and watching everything that's happening. And I feel like, first of all, seeing so much bad news gets you anxious, even me just seeing it for a little bit, I feel anxious, I feel worried, I get paranoid, like, oh, is somebody gonna break into my house?
Right.
Or I'm thinking about my kids driving and somebody's gonna hit them.
Yes.
So it's really important too to just monitor your news, like lower the intake of news that you're watching for your own mental health, because so much negativity really does impact you. And I've had those situations where I start worrying and panicking because I remember what I saw on TV. And so I have to just really reframe my thoughts.
I watch a lot of crime documentaries, and so
a lot of women do.
So when my kid doesn't answer the phone, I'm like, what happened?
Yes. Did somebody kidnap him?
I'm already wondering, what was he wearing today?
Like one time my son wouldn't answer the phone and he always answers. So I'm like, oh my God, he got kidnapped. He's already being sex traded. Like I was
Why did you go there? Crime doc.
Yeah, and I'm calling his dad. I'm like, he might be in the sex trade already. They kidnapped him, and he's like, dude, he's 21 years old and he's 6 feet tall. Nobody's gonna put him in the sex. I'm like, you never know. So that's when you really have to, take a step back and like, okay, I'm watching too much crime shows, too much news.
Yes.
And that's when it starts affecting your mental health. And just with anything, I feel balance is so important.
Right.
Like too much of anything is not good.
Not good.
And too little of something isn't good. So too little exercise, well, that's not good. Right?
Or too little family time.
Yes, that's not good.
For your kids or for your family, for yourself. Too little of that is not good. It's important to reconnect with the kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And talking about stress relieving and anxiety and depression, it's so important for people to really implement some sort of like physical activity into their life, whether it be going outside and taking a walk. I mean, at work,
we walk constantly.
Me and the girls would go out and just be like, hey, let's take it's been hectic today. Let's go take a quick 5-minute walk. I mean, it doesn't have to be 20 minutes. No. You can go do a quick 5-minute walk when you're feeling stressed. Same if you work from home. You're at home all day. Take that little 5-10 minute break. Go outside, smell the fresh air, take a walk. Get just some sunshine in, and just disconnect for like 5-10 minutes is so important.
And I think it's important also to normalize those feelings. A lot of people feel like, oh, I'm anxious, but I can't talk about it, or I'm depressed, but I can talk about it. It's normal to feel like that.
To feel all those emotions.
Yeah. So if you're a friend, a family, normalize those things. So that way you open the door for people to come to you with their needs. Not like you said at the beginning, it's not like they're going to fix it for you, but at the very least you have an outlet. Somebody that you can trust.
And I think too, if your parents out there, breaking that generational curse, like if you were raised, especially if you're a male, like don't talk about your problems, or, as a female, you have to get all this done and, and
limpia la casa.
And you should be fine. You have to break those generational, what do they call the,
well, I guess curses.
Yes. And,
traditions.
Traditions or, whatever it may be. But teach your children, when they're feeling anxious, teach them how to breathe, teach them those breathing techniques, take them outside for a little bit.
Let them cry. A lot of parents are afraid of letting their kids cry. Let them cry. They need to get those feelings
especially
out.
When they're little boys and they, they're no llores.
No llores.
Like, that's not appropriate. Let them cry. Let them show their emotions. That's a coping technique. That's an outlet for them.
Yeah, they're angry. Let them be angry. That's fine. You don't gotta fix it for them. Just let the feelings pass. It's like we tell the kids all the time. Feelings are not permanent. They're passing. So
well, exercise and walking is definitely a coping technique. Right? Now that you guys have already gotten into coping techniques,
yes,
please talk to me a little bit more about what works for you guys. What you guys feel are what's in your toolbox that's extremely handy that always works for you.
Well, for me, definitely walking, taking a walk throughout the day. That really helps me, release that tension. And also what I do in the morning is just say positive affirmations in the morning to yourself, and I think that's really important, especially for, adolescents and women out there, telling yourself positive things in the morning changes your mood. You know? If you wake up and you say, oh, it's going to be like a terrible day. Well, how do you think your day's going to go? But if you wake up and say, oh, it's going to be a good day, I look good, my hair looks good, or, I'm going to have, A, B, and C things planned out to do, and it's going to be a great day. Well, your day's probably more apt to go well.
So what you're saying is plan your day out.
Or just wake up with a positive attitude, even if you're not feeling it. Try to find a little something that, like for me, coffee.
Coffee's always a good thing.
Yes, like when I wake up and I'm not in a good mood, I'm grumpy and grouchy, and I don't want my day to go like that. So I guess what makes me happy? Coffee. So I go grab a cup of coffee, smell it, drink it, and and try to change those negative thoughts and my attitude, and then I have a good day. And I think they've seen me.
Yeah. We go together in the morning and get coffee together. Like that's
and we go in grumpy and
we come out happy. Now everybody can talk to us.
Yes, like okay, we're ready for the day.
It's kind of like neuro-linguistic programming sometimes, right?
Yes.
There's a couple of things, because you mentioned affirmations, right?
Exactly.
Those work really good.
Yes.
Jazmine, do you ever use affirmations to make yourself feel better sometimes?
I do, because they call me Angry Brows. So I'm grumpy a little bit.
Especially in the morning before she gets her coffee.
So I do need to remind myself that it's going to be a good day. Okay. And I sometimes I carry a lot of worry in what I have to do. So if I find it easier for me if I write down everything that I have to do and then just start crossing things off, it makes me feel good. So prioritizing my duties throughout the day helps me a lot. At home, I like to listen to music. I like to, watch TV. I feel like coping skills don't have to be so complicated. They can be simple things. I like doing puzzles. I like,
puzzles are good.
Yes, I like doing puzzles while listening to music. Going for a walk at night when it's fresher, that's good too. So I don't think they have to be. I like to paint, even though I paint horribly.
Yeah,
I like to paint.
I like to color like a 3-year-old. And
like Barbie
and the kids,
pages.
Yeah, and sometimes when I'm working with kids or whatever, I'm like, let's color. And that's part of like the therapy session. Like I give them crayons and I'm coloring, and it's helping me relax and listen to them, and they're looking at me like, you're coloring. I'm like, of course.
Yeah,
Like
coloring
it helps me relax, and then once moments where coloring, I mean, they're feeling
opening
comfortable
up.
and then they open up.
Yeah.
So like Jazmine says, it doesn't have to be complicated. Just find something that you really enjoy, you know, whether it be art, coloring, painting.
Some people like
listening to
doing
music.
laundry.
Yeah, I like to vacuum sometimes, you know.
I like to mop.
Yeah.
I do.
I like to vacuum.
I like to mop.
So you come to
We
my
should
house.
just do it
and, we'll just,
There you go. So in a therapy session, Helen would be, well, I'd like to have Jazmine over my house.
Yeah.
And then afterwards she can come to my house and we can, apply those coping techniques.
Exactly.
But don't overcomplicate things. Just do what you like, and I think that you will feel better. A lot of times we feel guilty for indulging in things that we can do for ourselves, and so I think it's important to be able to think about yourself too, because we so often just worry about everybody else.
And I think also talking about coping techniques, I think it's really important to start off since your kids are small, to teach them breathing techniques, because that's so important. I know some schools, I just saw an episode on this on the news, some schools are actually incorporating breathing techniques in order for them to be able to
Manage their emotions.
self-regulate. And so I think that's so important, because even just for us, you know, especially when your anxiety is high, you can have a panic attack. And so you have to learn how to be able to just take those deep breaths and use breathing techniques. And you know, starting the kids when they're little, teaching them those techniques is it's gonna be very helpful for them in the future to be able to regulate their emotions.
Yeah,
there's a few schools that are teaching right now breathing techniques, but for those parents that are watching right now, for example, or for those who have kids right now, that they're, you know, breathing techniques are not on the agenda, how would you teach a child breathing techniques?
Helen, the very first time I saw this, it was with Helen. She tells the kids, you're holding a rose in one hand and you're holding a candle in the other. So you smell the rose, and then you blow out the candle.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's super easy, and that's as simple as it can get.
I love these, and I want you guys to give me more examples, because I know for a fact that those are working with kids, educators, teachers, dance instructors might be able to use these type of techniques.
I've also at work I carry hand sanitizer that's scented. And so sometimes when the kids are all mocosos and crying, I'll be like, mira, tienes las manitas sucias, like your hands are dirty. Can I give you some hand sanitizer? And then I'll tell them, mira, hazle así. And they're rubbing it. And then I go, breathe it in. And they breathe it in. And that gets them breathing too. And the scent will get them, it's like a grounding technique. So I use that a lot at work. And then they love it. And then they finish my hand sanitizer. But that's fine.
That's what it's for.
There's just a lot of different, you can just go into the internet, you know, like we've been talking about, and there's just so many different techniques to teach your children how to breathe, and very simple.
Even just having them drink water, you know, a cold glass of water, that'll get them to kind of calm down, I think, a little bit. What else? Just anything really. I feel like just talking to your kid, being present there with them during the time that they're going through their anxiety attack or their
is that connection right there, Jazmine? For example, some parents might get a little anxiety being in a room with their teenager and there's no interaction. They think, oh geez, I feel I need to talk. I feel I need to do something. I feel I need to make a connection. Is that always the case?
No, sitting in silence is perfect enough. I've sat in silence with a lot of clients. We're just there.
Even your own kids.
Just there. Be in the moment. You don't have to say anything.
Yeah, at least you're there.
You know, at least you're there. You know, if they want to talk, they can talk. If you want
and don't take things so personally as a parent. You know, I know sometimes you feel like, oh, he doesn't want to spend time with me, or he doesn't want to talk to me. That's part of being a teenager. You know, they go through their little mood swings, or they don't want to talk to their parents. They don't feel their parents are cool. It's normal.
It's very normal.
So don't take it personal. You know, just roll with it. You know, roll with life, and you know. Don't take everything so seriously. Even at work, you know, it's just work.
Yeah.
You know, they're not going to care. Like if you end up in the hospital, they're not really going to care, you know. about your stress, your ailments, or whatever.
I just want to know when you come back.
Yeah, exactly. So don't take everything so seriously. Like I said, balance. Balance. Too much of something is not good, and too little of something is not good.
If your kid wants to miss school, let them. It's one day.
Yeah. What if they miss all the time?
We need mental health days. You know? If they miss all the time, that's an issue.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
But every once in a while, like Jazmine says, every once in a while you need that mental health day.
Yeah.
And I wish the United States would be more proactive in just seeing how important mental health is.
Yes.
And, especially also, in business, like you need to give your employees that mental health day and be able to provide them with an outlet,
right.
And I think when you do stuff like that for your employees and you actually care about their mental health, they're more productive for you.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Because they know that you care about their mental health. You know that,
And it doesn't have to even come with a day off. It could be with just allowing them to mingle with their coworkers.
Or, sending them to workshops on mental health. I mean, that's a value, not just for the company, but for the people working at your business, especially right now with so many shootings in the United States. A lot of it has to do because the employee's unhappy at work and they're being bullied and mistreated and overworked or whatever it may be. But if you were just to have, provided your employee with like a mental health day with these mental health trainings, they could be
so
able
that way
to
they
manage.
can go home and de-stress.
Yes.
Well, I want to go a little bit back. I like what you guys are saying, but I want to go back to taking some moments for yourself and living in the moment, in the present. I recently heard about, a friend that was having issues because they weren't sure that missing out on a certain school event for their child was worth it. It's like, but I'm going to get a little anxious. I want to be able to enjoy it, but at the same time, I don't want to. I want to give myself permission to leave work a little bit. How important is to take time off for yourself and for your family?
But
it's very important, and especially in the situation of being there for your kid. Work is going to be there. If you have the opportunity to take a few hours off or take a day off to be present for your child, it could change the world for your child. Showing up for those special events, going to their games, going to their award ceremonies, going to their choir, their guitar lessons, that can really do a lot for your child in the long run. So being present, that's what family is for, to witness your achievements, to witness your completing your goals. So if we're not there to witness for our kids, what are we doing? So be present.
And I really like what Jazmine's saying, because for me personally, growing up, both my parents worked, and my mom was a workaholic, so pretty much my grandma raised me. And for me, I remember being a little girl and saying, I just wish my mom would come to my, science fair. I wish she would just come pick me up. It was like those little things that she was missing out on. And as an adult, I decided I don't want to miss out on my child's stuff. And so I made it a point to try to make it to as much stuff as I could. And so that was my own choice. But I remember those feelings of my mom not being there, And so it could be traumatizing for a child.
Especially because you see all the other parents there. You see all the other kids getting that validation from their family. And you don't get it. It's like, okay, well, why not me?
And if you're worried about your work, all it takes is for you to have an open communication with your boss and let them know, hey, this is really important for me and this is really important for my child. And, I'm going to take 2 hours off and I can make it up, at the end of the week or whatever. Just have that open communication and be firm, in your
hopefully
beliefs.
They understand, because then we go back to those toxic work environments. So hopefully they understand, and hopefully you have the ability to do that. And so I would encourage any parent to fight for that ability to be able to be present for their kids as much as possible.
Perfect. Beautiful. Well said, guys. Believe it or not, we've already run out of time. So I always give you guys a platform to give some words of encouragement for those that are viewing this right now. So Jazmine, shoot first. Go for it. I
think that mental health doesn't have to be so complicated just go find somebody, talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be a whole big event. Just try to look for something that'll help you out as best as possible, so you can be the best version of yourself for your family and for yourself. It doesn't have to be hard.
Love that.
Can be
best
very
version
easy.
of yourself.
Yeah.
So awesome.
For me, I have two. Laughter is the best medicine, right? So that's one for me, because like Jazmine said, not everything has to be so serious and complicated. You have to be able to have those light moments to, release some of that tension. And, it's been said that, laughter releases the endorphins. It makes you feel lighter. It helps with diabetes, with hypertension. So yes, laughter is the best medicine. And also, like I've been saying throughout this podcast, I feel everything in balance, with balance, like not too much of something, not too little of something. Always try to be balanced. I know one week you might be overloaded with work and super stressed. So then you're going to say, okay, the weekend, I'm just going to relax,
Not do nothing.
Yes, not have so much work the next week, and just balance yourself out, And I think being able to know yourself and what your emotions and what you're feeling, I think that's very important.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Jazmine and Helen on the Love, Health, Prosperity podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Marcelo.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.